If you have a track or tracks that you want to help to stand out a little more in the mix, then this tip can help, and you can even do this on your entire mix to make it sound more thick and bigger. So I'll show you how to do that as well. And one of the cool things is you don't need any expensive or fancy plugins to do this. You can do this with the free stock plugins that come with your DAW. One of the plugins that I'm going to show you how to do this with is a stock plugin that comes with Tracktion Waveform free. So it's a free, very basic plugin, but I'll also show you how I do this with the plugins that I normally use, and they're not that expensive either. I'll include links to all of this stuff that I'm using down in the description so you can check out any of it very easily. But the thing that we're talking about today is parallel compression, and it might sound fancy or harder than what it really is. This is going to be very quick and easy for you to set up. So let's jump in. Now, when we get to this point where we're going to be doing parallel processing or parallel compression in this case, you want to have your mix pretty much complete. And that way you can have a listen to what needs to stand out a little more in the mix. And then you can make your decision on where you want to put your parallel compression or whatever it is you want to do. So let's just have a quick listen to what this sounds like right now. All right, so that's the mix without any of the parallel processing on there. I think I'm going to add it to the kick and the snare. I typically add it there just to give a little more definition to those, but I'm also going to do this to the guitar bus after we take care of that, and then I'll show you how to do this for the entire mix. So let's jump into the drum bus here. And the first thing we're going to do is create a new track. So I'll just click on this plus sign here, add track. It's going to add it down there, and I'm going to bring it up. And now I'm just going to give this a name. So right click, rename track. I like to call it drum comp. You can call it whatever you want, whatever makes sense for you. So we have drum comp. Now we need to open our drum bus here for all our drums, and I want to add this to the kick. So what I want to do is go to whatever the last plugin is in here. I want to go to that. And I'm going to right click, then add plugin to left. And what we're going to be adding here is a send. So we need to go to waveform, utility, and then we go to aux send. And now we have this send here. So I'm just going to expand this so you can see a little more what's on here. All right, so I'm just going to make that track bigger, and now we can still kind of see it over there, but we have our send. I have another send at the end, and I'm going to keep that there, but one of the things you want to note about where you place the send is that whatever comes before it is also going to be sent on there. But if we were to move this to, say, the beginning here, then what we're sending isn't going to have any of these effects on it. So you want to have it at the end, and I like to have it after the fader. So then that way, if I lower the fader down here, then it's also going to lower the levels on this drum comp. So that way I don't have to go back to the drum comp and change the levels on there if I've adjusted levels here. So I like to have it right after the fader, and that's what I have there. So I'm going to click on the send, and if I click here on bus, you can see there's already some that I've used, and I want to put this on bus 5. I'm going to call this drum comp. All right. And because I'm going to send the kick and my snares to the same compressor, I can just copy this. So I can hold down Control on my computer keyboard, click, and then I can drag it down here to my snare. So that's the snare top. And then I can drag it again down to here, which is the snare bottom. So now I have the same send on my kick, snare top, and snare bottom. And I'm just going to set this height again to default size. Now we go to our drum comp that we created earlier, and you don't want this inside of a drum bus or in the folder with your drums. You want this outside of that. So if I close down that drum bus, I can still see our comp here. Now, what I want to do on this drum comp is I'll just add a plugin, click there, waveform utility, and this time I'm going to add an aux return. So I'll click on that, and by default it always goes to bus 1, and in this case I have it as lead vox, but I'm going to put this as drum comp. So there it is. Now I'm going to solo our drum bus, and when I play the drums, the kicks and the snares should also route to our new bus here. All right, there we go. It's working as intended. So now what I need to do is add a compressor on here. And I'll show you first with the free stock compressor that comes with Waveform. And this comes with Waveform Free and Waveform Pro. So you just go to Waveform, Effects, and we're just going to add this simple compressor right here. There it is. And the first thing I'm going to adjust is our ratio. You can see it's set to 2. So I'll just click in there and then press 4 on my computer keyboard, hit enter, and the ratio is set to 4. The attack is almost right. You kind of want it in the center somewhere, but I'm going to make it a little bit quicker, and I'm going to make the release a little bit longer. But you can try this straight up the middle and see how it works. But for now, I'm going to try it like that. And then with our threshold, we're going to have to start the playback, and we'll adjust the threshold because I want to get the gain reduction to about minus 10 dB when the loudest hit happens. But I also want it to kind of keep the compressor engaged. So let's just see how this is going to work. You're actually not hearing our new drum comp here, and that's because I have the drum bus soloed. So what we can do to protect against that, because there's going to be times when you're going to solo various things, what we can do is go down to our solo on the drum comp that we created, and we want to right click on the solo, and now we want to change it to solo isolate. And now anytime that we solo anything, that bus is going to stay soloed. And that's kind of what we want here, so we can continue to hear what we're listening for. And that makes life a lot easier because then we don't have to click solo and then go down and click solo again. We just have to click it once. So let's hear what we've got going on here, and then I'm going to adjust the threshold so we have about minus 10 dB of gain reduction. All right, that's good right about there. It's being pretty aggressive, and that's what we want. So let's just listen to it on and off. So you can hear it's very noticeable, and we don't want it to be overly noticeable. What we want is it just to be slightly noticeable. So I'm going to bring down the level of our drum comp here, and then I'm going to bring it up so we can just start to notice a bit of a difference. So I think right about there, it's just sort of thickening up the track. We don't want it to be overly noticeable. We just want it to be there to liven up this track a little bit. So let's listen to it on and off in the mix to see if we're getting the snare and the kick to stand out a little bit more in this mix. So I'm going to take it off of solo. So you can hear it does give a little more definition to our kick and our snare. Now, if the kick drum's being a little too overly aggressive in here, maybe it's making the kick a little too pronounced and you want to bring that back, we can lower the level of just the kick going to that. So we'll go back to our kick track and then we'll go to the aux send on there. Here it is. And we can actually lower the level that's getting sent to our new drum comp track. So I could just bring it back a little bit. So like any other track, you can add EQ on here, and you might want to do that because some of those lower frequencies can really start to build up in the mix when we're doubling them up like this. So you might want to go to your drum comp here and after the compressor, and I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but you want to add any effects after your return because this is where the audio is coming from. So everything that comes after this return is going to be audio that's going into this compressor and then into whatever else. Anything that comes before this isn't going to have an effect on anything because it's not getting the audio go through it. The audio is going through this and then here and whatever. So let's add a EQ here. So add plugin, and I actually really like this 8-band equalizer. This comes with Tracktion Waveform free. It's pretty nice. So we'll put that in there, and I believe it's already set up for a shelf. Yeah, so we'll have a low shelf, and I'll probably set it for right around there. I don't know, that's a little aggressive. We'll probably bring it up a bit. Listen to that. All right, so that's our drums taken care of. Let's move on to our guitars now. So here's our guitar bus right here. And the same thing, I'm going to add plugin to left here, go to waveform, utility, and I'm going to add a send. There's our send. And this time I'll put it on bus 3. We'll call this one guitar comp. Hit enter. Now I have 2 guitars in here, so you can see guitar 1 and 2. And if I put that on the guitar bus, I don't need to put it on the individual guitars. So now I'm going to create a new track, add track. We'll call this one guitar comp. And I'm just going to set the input to 2 so you don't see my voice distracting you. And we'll put this right here under the guitar bus. You can see I call it guitar sub for sub mix. That's all that means. But we're going to add that return now. So go over here, waveform, utility, and aux return. We'll set this for our guitar comp. And there we go. So now let's do that solo safe or solo isolate here. So we'll right click here, go to solo isolate. That way when we solo our guitar bus, it's also going to add this guitar comp in there. So let's just listen to that. And all that's doing is just doubling it up in there, which isn't what we want to do exactly. We want to add that compressor. And this time I'm going to add one that I always use. So that's the Waves CLA76. All right. So here is our Waves CLA76 compressor, and it's really not that expensive. You can use any 1176 compressor. I just happen to like this one, but I've also used the UAD 1176 and the Arturia 1176, the soft tube one. I've used a bunch of different ones on here. So what we're going to do is just set up our attack and our release, and this is actually kind of set the way I want it. I might just put the release over a little bit and bring the attack up to there. But it's already on a 4 ratio, and what we got to do now is just set our gain reduction to hit -10 here. All right, so that's set up there. Now we need to adjust the level so it's mixed in there nicely. And again, we'll just play it back. That still might be a little too noticeable. All right, that's good right there. And again, we can add an EQ after that. I'll just add one to show you, but you can add other stuff in there. Maybe you want to add some saturation in there as well to dirty up the signal a little bit or thicken it up even more, because certain saturations are going to add some nice thickness to it. Now I'm going to just add that 8-band equalizer. And again, I'm going to just roll off some of the lows. With your guitar, you might want to take out some of the mids or something. It's up to you. Whatever you notice that might need to be taken out. I'm going to just reset that back. There, I'll just put that back like that. All right, so let's hear how this guitar sounds in the mix now. So I think that's quite noticeable, and it does thicken up that guitar. So that's showing you two different individual tracks, and I might stop there. I might do it on the lead vocals, but I tend to do a different thing to the lead vocals. That would be for another video though. Right now I'm going to show you how we can route all of our tracks or buses to a mix comp, and that way we thicken up everything. So I'm going to add another track down here, and I'm going to call this one Mix Comp. All right, so there's Mix Comp, and because it was going to take some time, I did already create this Mix Comp send. So you can see there's a bus called Mix Comp here, and it's just the same as before. And then what I would do is just hold down Control, and you don't want to put it on these parallel compressions. What you want to put it on is the main buses, like our drum bus, our bass bus if you have one, or your individual bass guitar, your individual synthesizers, whatever instruments. You want to put it on the individual instruments or the individual buses for those instruments, not any parallel compression. So the drum bus, I'll also put it on the bass bus. I have it right there. The guitar bus, I have it on there. My lead vocals, you can see it's on there. My vocal double, it's on there. My backing vocal bus, it's on there. And I also have it on my vocal reverb. And I have this, what's called the fat verb, which is I'm sending a bunch of my tracks to this fat verb to just kind of make them sound a little wider and like they're all in the same room. It's very subtle. Again, another video for that one, but I have all this stuff being sent to this mix comp bus. So I need to add the return on here, and we'll go to Waveform, Utility, Aux Return, and we're going to change the bus to mix comp. And now everything is running into here, and it's going to be really loud if I were to play it back. So I'm not going to play it back just yet. I'm going to add our compressor on there, and this time I will add a different compressor. Why not? So I will add the UAD 1176. All right, so this is the UAD 1176, which is another one that I use quite often. And one thing to note about these with both the Waves and the UAD one is they do come with other models of the 1176. With the UAD one, it's separate plugins. With the CLA one, just going to find that, it's actually built right into the plugin. So I just click there and it brings up a different model. But for this, I usually like to use the darker models. So again, we'll set this up, put our attack right about there, release, looks good there. And let's solo safe this or solo isolate. All right. Okay, so that looks good right there. We're not hearing it yet because I have the level all the way down on here. So now let's just bring that level up until everything sounds a little more full. All right, so that's probably around where I would set it, somewhere around there. And it's just thickening things up a little bit. It's not overly noticeable, but in the grand scheme of things, in your overall mix, when you do your mix down, it will be noticeable because it's going to make it sound more full. It's not going to be a thin sounding mix. It's going to be a very nice, big, full sounding mix. Again, let's listen to that. So yeah, you can hear how it really thickens up that whole mix. Now what I want to do is just mute all of these parallel compressors that we just added, and we can hear the mix without them, and then I'll add them back in. So yeah, you can really hear that it takes that thin mix, which is probably the typical mix that we were going to create, but now it's adding a lot more thickness in there, and it's super easy to set up. If I wasn't talking about this, I could probably do all of these in around 5 minutes, maybe even less, as long as I know what I'm doing. But then, yeah, you are going to want to add some EQ on these, maybe some saturation, and that's probably about it. If you want to get a little more familiar with that CLA76 compressor or just compression in general, click the video on the screen right now. And I also have some Tracktion Waveform courses coming out. A free course that's going to be launched soon, and then there's going to be a very advanced paid course that's going to be coming in the new year. Thank you so much for watching. For Audio Tech TV, I'm Zane. Keep creating. Fist bump. Thumbs up.